Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Chewy playing with his Chewy. What the hell is that? What are you doing? I've told you before, you shouldn't be touching your Chewy in public, Chewy.
Oh, he made the chewy noise and now he's not doing it.
Can I play too? You ready?
This was a present from my lovely wife who's been away for 6 or 7 months. I lost track in England. So she knows me very well.
I'm joining in. I'm joining in the Star Wars theme.
He now gets to go up on top of the Chewy shrine over there.
So what this means is this just confirms every alt-right troll calling us incels who live in our basement playing with our Star Wars toys.
It's not a basement.
Well, yours is your bedroom. Mine's my basement. But it's my basement, not my mum's basement. Nah.
I sleep in a different bedroom, in a big bed with my wife.
This is your special bedroom. This is your playthings bedroom. Is that right? All right. Kia ora whānau. Good to be back with you. If you saw the information about the show, we're generally following the same path, but there are going to be one or two more things thrown in there. Matthew Tukaki is about to join us, and we're going to talk about Luxon's lovely foray into the world of Kainga Ora, Chewy, and the profit return he wants to see for that public service. We're also going to talk about Liz Gunn, and I've got the receipts, including the footage of the actual assault she's been found guilty of today.
Footage is amazing.
I think, Chewy, you know, your friend Damien Grant, how do you introduce him every time?
Sometimes they say he's a convicted fraudster, which is of course true. And then sometimes they say he's a twice convicted fraudster, which is also true.
That's on special days when you want to make him feel extra good. So now, how do we introduce Liz Gunn? Convicted assaulter?
I don't know. Some sort of machine to help brain worms move around the world more easily.
Criminal? I guess we'll wait and see, because I mean, found guilty of assault today, not found guilty of found not guilty, I should say, of whatever it was to the police. And I guess that's a guilt. They're going to repeal it, I'm assuming. That's what most people seem to do. So we'll wait and see. But as of today, guilty of assault. Got some receipts to show you about that.
Absolutely appeal it. Absolutely.
Yep. And then do another funding round based on that appeal. The Waitangi Tribunal having a little bit of fun today and releasing not classified, but certainly not yet ready for release documents showing, I think the official term is David Seymour being a goose. I think that's written in there somewhere. I think I could be wrong, but in there somewhere. And there's lots going on. If we get time, there's also this story about the government ready to scrap grants to help first home buyers.
Oh, they've done it. They've done it apparently.
Yeah. So
out of nowhere.
There's a lot of stuff tonight, so we may not get to all of it. But if we don't, we'll just be here till 11:30. That's probably what's going to happen. Anyway, the lovely Matthew Tukaki. In fact, let's just bring Matthew in and say, good day, mate. Good day to him. Hey, Matthew, welcome to the show.
You two are a crack up.
Thanks.
As soon as you said brainworm, the thing that came to mind was, in June, the sandworm. Big one with all those bloody teeth.
Yeah.
Just munching it way through the cerebral cortex.
Tithing everyone along the way, all those poor little...
Absolutely.
Anyway, kia ora, good to be with you guys.
I saw a tweet you sent out today. We were just talking before the show, Twitter versus X, little side note, tangent. I saw Elon Musk run a survey over the weekend asking the users of Twitter, he goes, be honest, like his ego can handle honesty. Be honest, is it Twitter or is it X? And I scrolled through more than 100 responses. 2 of them said X. The rest of them said Twitter. So when you've put into common parlance, when you've put into the dictionary your brand becoming a verb to tweet, and then you get rid of that verb by trying to call it X, no one will listen to you. So Twitter.
Have you guys seen that movie, Idiocracy?
Yes.
Whenever I see Idiocracy, all I can think of is Elon Musk.
Yeah. And Trump. Trump and his followers.
Well, actually quite a few of them, but
all right. So we were looking around today, and I saw on Twitter, the platform formerly known as Twitter, a text by you, Matthew, a tweet by you, and it just made me think about two things. One is what we've talked about for a long time about, business people running a country. But the second is specifically looking at what Luxon and his cronies are saying about Kainga Ora at the moment. Let me read your tweet out for the audio podcast listeners. Just wanted to say, Aotearoa, New Zealand is not a company. It's not run by a board. We are a country and we have people, a unique and awesome people. Yes, we have our mad old uncle who we aren't your shareholders. We are voters. We aren't your customers. We are citizens. And that just echoes something that we've been talking about for a long time, is that if you run something as a business, by law, you have to attempt to return a dividend or profits for your shareholders. When you run a country, you have to provide a service for your citizens, and a service may not be profitable. So let's have a look at this. We're only going to play 50 seconds of this clip because I think our conversation around being a country and being a business is all synopsized in this one conversation. Daniel Faitawa asks Mr. Luxon a question around about how many houses are they going to sell off, and he doesn't actually answer the question, ironically, but this will give us the gist of the start of our conversation. Here we go.
So tell me, how many state houses are you going to sell off?
Well, this argument that, as we've said before, we want to see an increase in what's called social housing. Social housing is provided through state houses, through Kainga Ora, but also through many community housing providers as well. But really what we announced yesterday was to say, look, Kainga Ora is the biggest landlord in the country. It has a huge responsibility to house our most vulnerable New Zealanders. And it's been doing a very poor job of that. There's been poor financial management. So let me just come back to my first question there, Prime Minister. How many state houses are you going to sell off? Again, that hasn't been the focus of our review. What our review has focused on is actually saying we've got to make sure that KO is a high-performing organisation, which it currently isn't, and it needs to be financially sustainable. It needs a massive turnaround plan, and it needs a refreshed board and a new chairman, which is what we've announced yesterday.
So that's the gist of the conversation we're going to have today, because there are some interesting phrases that our Here List leader uses. One of them, of course, was financially sustainable. Yes, I think we all agree that public money needs to be spent wisely, that you need to have, be responsible with it, and you need to get good bang for your buck. But the vibe that I'm getting, and I feel that others are getting as well, is when you hear Mr. Luxon, who sold his virtues as being a good prime minister because he sat on boards, did business, when he says financially sustainable, the feeling I get is the money put into it needs to repeat itself and then pay for itself. And that doesn't feel like what a housing system for people who need it, a social housing system, would be. So let's just throw you the ball, Matthew, and we talk about country. This country should not be run as a business. We are a country, and you are more than welcome to tie it into Kainga Ora. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, look, by the time I think he got to that interview, he'd figured out how to pronounce Kainga Ora, because in the other media stand-ups he did this morning was KO.
He calls it KO in this as well. He does call it KO in this.
He does a lot of KO. So, first of all, get your narrative right. It's a Māori word. It's okay to speak in Māori, and I think he's afraid of it, as are many of his ministers. But, look, Kainga Ora is an entity under the Crown Entities Act of 2004. And I get that people want to see the state-owned enterprises and Crown entities and Tamir and all this other sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're not businesses. These organizations, or this organization, is meant to be in the business of assisting and supporting the most vulnerable in our community, who just so happens, sadly, with the amount of rent that people are having to pay from their weekly income, which is for many people above 50%, no matter the age or ethnicity. When you're in that vulnerable stage, the last thing you want to do is have the Christine rankification of what used to be Housing New Zealand at your door saying, pay up or get out. And the other thing I found really strange about this sort of interview of trying to corporatize housing in New Zealand is actually, I think people are confused between what is state housing and what is social housing. The government should be in the business of building state houses because that's who we are. That's our whakapapa. We do this in order to house the most vulnerable, as I keep on saying, in our community. And I think Luxon's got a little bit off the mark. In the AM show interview this morning, for example, he was confused at who was going to be appointing the new board directors who apparently are all losing their jobs in July. Is it the incoming board chair from Spark? Is it this? Is it that? So if you're going to run things like a business, at least know what the business structure is before you start saying, well, this is how things are going to be. I thought that was a bit crazy. So yeah, I mean, I think we've lost that Michael Joseph Savage impetus around why we have the welfare social safety net in this country. And then just to save a confusion, sorry, I'm on a rant, I'm on a roll. It's this whole, to be frank, I don't know if I can swear, but this whole bollocks of saying, oh, social housing, community housing. No. The other reason the government's in the business of doing this is because it's an asset that not only belongs to the people, it sits in our books. So in times of need, when we do need to go and borrow money for other things to pay for other things, then we've got stuff sitting in our books, similar to how if you want a new kitchen in your home and you go back to the bank and say, look, I want to borrow more against my home or the equity that I've got in my home, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, and to be frank, I mean, you can hardly claim that running Air New Zealand is in the world of business. I mean, Air New Zealand in and of itself has been rescued how many multiple times by the taxpayers now? I mean, I remember the old debacle under, I think his name was Jeff Toomey and ANZ Australia. Need I bring that hoo-ha up? That was the first bailout. The next bailout came not soon after that. And you know, again, soon after, all of a sudden, he's claiming credentials for having run in New Zealand. I mean, you know, somebody with a dodgy CV and embellishment, apparently. I wouldn't put that on my CV. I wouldn't cast that about. So I think he's being a little bit loose with the conversation, to be frank.
I also think they're not, the media is yet, and when I keep saying the media for the regular people, it's because they don't talk to us. They don't give us access because we might ask them hard questions. Yeah. But the media hasn't seemed to push on. There's this been narrative since yesterday that one of the things they're talking about doing is passing them on to, you know, social groups to do it. One of the things they may do is move the ownership of some of Kainga Ora houses to some of these social groups. And Kieran McElnotty, who was with us last night, kind of said that you end up paying for the property multiple times. So we, the taxpayer, pay for the house to be built, and then we pay for someone. Well, we subsidize someone living in it, and then we give the house to give or sell the house to a social entity, and then we continue to pay the rent for it as we were, but we as a country has lost that asset. And the big problem. Yeah, and we don't have that asset on our ledger anymore. And the biggest thing I found, we put a tweet out today from last night's conversation, and honestly, it's gone bananas, including people saying, oh, the only investigative journalists in the country. And I think it was as simple as Kieran saying, or us figuring out as we were talking about, yes, under Labour, they put on $10 billion more of debt for that, but they got $25 billion worth of property. Yeah. So, and when this is what this government will do, they'll just say the number, that's the number, 10 billion bad, 10 billion bad. Number. Yeah, they'll leave out the part, by the way, $25 billion worth of asset on that ledger. So actually, $15 billion better off, in theory, if you're doing a profit and loss statement or an assets ledger sort of thing. So that hasn't been said enough, and we're going to keep repeating that because people seem to have only heard that the first time last night.
Yeah, Pat, I think you're onto it because look, I didn't see the interview with Kieran, but here's the thing with this particular number throwing that they put out there, and it might have been you, Chewy. You know, they put the big number out there, scare the people. Don't just scare the people once, scare them all of the time. And that fits with that narrative around, oh, well, we're just better at managing the economy than the left side of politics because that's how we view things in this country. But when you really pare it all back, and you have a look at the asset base that's been created by the state housing system in Aotearoa, we're talking about a massive investment of billions over the years that's created even more billions over the years. It's a massive asset, but we don't see it as an asset. We see it as a cost. And then we go the race to the bottom of saying, oh, and then there's all those naughty tenants out there that have parties and then we're seeing an increase in the number of people who don't want Kainga Ora homes or state houses built in their communities, because it affects the house price. And that's my big point. House prices haven't really gone down. They've gone up. Therefore, the asset value has continued to skyrocket in recent years, but not in our backyard. The moment we pass those assets over to a social enterprise or a community housing initiative or whatever, or even business, we lose control of the asset. And it's not just about continuing to pay for the asset. We're losing the value of the asset at the same time. That's depleting the books. I mean, look, I didn't pass school see anything. And even I know how to do 1 + 1 on a bloody calculator. These muppets from the circus wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah. Chewy?
I'm also going to say, look, yes, they're going, and I think this is something that they're going to do right into the budget. They are going to talk about the big scary number at every opportunity to justify the slash and burn politics that they have in mind. And with all of these, it's just the number. No context, no deeper thought, no flow-on effect. We're looking at the value of what Kainga Ora is doing, what they've spent, their debt levels. We're not going to look at the value of the asset. We're not going to look at the benefit to the country to having people living in healthy, warm homes that don't have to go to hospital with respiratory illnesses. We won't have to look at kids that are off school because they're sick. We're not going to look at workers that aren't at work because they're sick or because their children are sick. We're not going to look at the benefits of building communities and giving people a leg up in life so they can hopefully buy their own homes, which flows into being secure in their retirement and their later life. We're not going to look at any of those. Too complicated. Doesn't get votes. We're not going to do it. And look, if the national government really wanted to take the position of we're not in the landlord business, right? Then we want to talk about social housing providers. They have done this before. When they go, oh, yeah, the Salvation Army is going to buy all of these old state houses from us. They took the pick of the bunch, the ones that weren't going to cost them much to bring up to the healthy home standard, the ones that weren't going to cost much to renovate, the ones that were in good locations, and they left the government with the rest, the ones that were suitable for the bulldozer, and that was it. And those sections were empty for years in the middle of the housing crisis.
And that's not going to happen now, because what the government is also not doing is then saying we guarantee the money of these rentals back to that agency. They're finishing that in 2025. They're not actually saying that that's going to roll over. Here's the thing that I want. I know you watch media. I know reporters watch because I hear from them. The next person who talks to Christopher Luxon about this issue and the $10 billion, this is the fucking question you need to ask him. So $10 billion extra, Mr. Luxon, what are you going to get for that? And see what he says, because the answer is $25 billion worth of assets, because he's leaving that part off. That question is essential to ask him. And mainstream media, I do love you, and I'm not going to be one of these bloody journalistic fun. And it's not that. It's just you have access, so you have a fucking responsibility to ask the right question, not to just listen to the narrative and move on to the next subject. I don't care if you've got him for 10 minutes and you've got to stay on one question the whole time. You have the access, you got to do it. Sorry, Matthew.
Yeah, I also think too the other big questions in this whole discussion is number one, which the English report didn't even touch on, was the report that was out today, was, okay, how much of our building stock is now wrapped up in offshore developers? So, for example, in Mount Roskill, there's the Evergreen building. We know that Evergreen, the big Chinese company, is in trouble at the moment and at risk of collapse, which will have a massive run-on impact and effect on the Chinese economy. And then the second part is, well, okay, and take this in two parts. Number one, in order to build the stock required, where are we getting stuff? Because we're not manufacturing stuff in this country anymore. So a lot of the electrical equipment, from the switches and the wires and it all comes in from overseas. So actually, why aren't we having a conversation about building supply products and the cost of it? And then the third thing is, as they still haven't sorted out what's going on in the technical vocational education sector, we are at risk, and we hear the stories of losing labour and skilled labour to overseas in Australia with police and nurses and all those sorts of professions. But actually, what about the construction industry? Who's left to build all this stuff? Because we're not training the trades like we used to, like the old Māori Affairs Trade Trainee Program and all this other sort of stuff. These are the legitimate questions that get lost in translation because it's all just soundbite stuff. And I come back to that movie I mentioned offline, which was Idiocracy. I mean, what are we about to become? Just a group of individuals? Another movie would have been the Art of Lying or something with Ricky Gervais in it. I mean, seriously, is this what we've come to?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one where everyone in the world can only speak the truth, and he's the first one that learns to lie. Eh?
That's the one. Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny.
So here's my other thought. Like, and this is just off the wall and it'll never happen, but just imagine, just stay with me here. Government decides that they're not in the business of being a landlord anymore. What if they offloaded all of that housing, all of that social housing to local iwi?
Well, actually, that's a good point, Trevor, because in the state of Victoria, they have transferred a significant number of what otherwise would have been housing commission state homes to Aboriginal organisations and entities. Now, I don't know too much more about it other than that's what they've done. I think it was only a couple of years ago, so the evidence I don't think is quite there yet. But what's really interesting about what you've just suggested is, you're right. If you don't want to be in the business of being a landlord, then also let's have a conversation about the land itself. That all these properties have been built on. Let's have a talk about the Public Works Act, where a lot of land was taken, not only from Māori, but a lot of other whānau as well. And let's have so I think, Cherie, you're onto it. If you don't want to be in the business of being a landlord where you've just given yourself a massive slew of tax cuts, then let's have an honest conversation about where we put this housing stock.
Yeah, and coming back to the original conversation based on your tweet, what is the no? It's just that we kind of feel like we've gone full circle about the housing stock. Because then, if we're going to run the country like a country and not a business, then that housing stock, that land, everything becomes a service to the community, not an asset to make a return on.
Yeah, and it's like everything though. At the moment, to be frank. And Labor can't escape my gaze on this one because they're just as guilty as some of this stuff. I mean, let's face it, people have a short memory. It was a Labor Longy government that created the world of the Rogernomics and the Prebbles that went on to create the ACT Party and all this other sort of nonsense. And actually, it was in the 1980s that a lot of our big entities were sold off. I mean, I would love to see the return of the Ministry of Works and the yellow cars. We used to build
Ministry of Works, buddy.
The Ministry of Works, the old Datsuns, and all the old yellow cars. We're having a discussion at the moment about the depletion of our research institutes because we corporatised it, gave it a name called Callaghan Innovation. Hell, it used to be called the DSIR. We did all that in the 80s. We ran to corporatise everything in the country, and now we're not me personally, and definitely not you two, but buying into this narrative of run everything as a business. Actually, that's not what the Singaporeans did. That wasn't the Singapore model. That wasn't the model in Norway when they were, ferreting away all their stuff into superannuation funds and big provident funds like oil resources. It certainly as hell didn't happen with the big pension funds in Canada that now invest in areas like ours in New Zealand. And so it's kind of like, yeah, okay, we get that you tried the business model and the idiocracy, corporatization, I like to call it, hell, the Christine Rankification of income support of the 1990s. So seriously, guys, and the other thing I think Luxon hasn't quite cottoned on to is I think your National Party colleagues are taking the piss. You've got no supporters in the party past this current round of government. Winston's waiting in the wings. I can't imagine that old uncle is going to want to be subservient to David Seymour in 12 months' time. So what are we actually buying into here? Yeah. The same old. I wrote an article today about Ruth Richardson and the mother of all budgets. I don't think this is going to be the mother of all budgets. It'll be stink-ass, but it's not going to be the mother of all budgets. But there's a lesson to be learned here. Can we stop talking about the corporatization of New Zealand's assets? And this is not about selling them to the Chinese. This is actually just putting in place dumb business models. The idiocracy of Aotearoa began more than a decade ago.
Very good.
You've mentioned Christine Rankin twice now. Please don't do it a third time. She will appear behind you and we won't have time to warn you. You'll just hear her earrings and that will be it. Yeah, look, this corporatization of our government departments set in long ago when we all became customers and clients and stakeholders. Yeah. And it always worried me that it was heading that way. Luxon talks about New Zealand being the best little small country in the world, and I really wonder how we're going to do that when our nurses leave, when our junior doctors leave, when our police leave, when our apprentices leave, and who do we have left? We don't invest in our business, we don't invest in our ideas, we don't create things. We don't manufacture things. We trade old houses to each other. We talk about our mortgages over beers, and aren't we doing well? And now today we hear that the little leg up that people can get to get into their first home, which again, the benefits of that outweigh the dollar value.
Yeah.
Because when we're looking at people's retirement ages, their house is their asset. It is the only thing that works, or you end up like my parents renting in their retirement, and their money disappears, and then their only option is death or the state. So if you can give someone even a $5,000 leg up on their deposit,
that's all it is.
Why not do it?
Yeah, it's $5. That's all it is. I saw it tonight on the news. We got a clip we might play tonight, we might not, but it's $5,000. Like, I know that there are some people within Kainga Ora that can get up to 20 grand to buy the Kainga Ora house. But what you're talking about, Drew, it's only $5,000. And if someone's that close to getting up to 10%, the girl on the news tonight had $55,000 and she needed 5 to get to 60 so she could buy a $600,000 house in Hamilton, and it's only $5,000. Imagine how much, like, to free up a state home, to stop on the services that the government's paying for the people because they haven't got a home. You know, it's not even an investment. It's just smart money, actually.
Well, my mum and dad consolidated back in the 1970s their family benefit to get the money that they needed to buy into their first home at Upper Hutt. And Dad built the house. I mean, he was the world's worst plumber. I mean, if he wanted a bath in our house, he had to run the hose in the window. The hot tap was the cold tap. The cold tap was the hot tap. Hell, we had a pot belly stove to warm the house because the flue wouldn't work. So, you know, but we used to be creative in how we got people into their first homes. You're right, it's not complicated. It doesn't cost the earth. There are things that we can do. But the other thing I'd say, just based on what you two have said, and I was ranting about this the other day, we used to be a nation that built stuff. Where I grew up, my dad ended up working in the Dunlop's tyre factory and the rubber worker. He was a rubber worker in Dunlop's Pacific Tyres in Upper Hutt. But, you know, there was we used to build cars there in the Hutt Valley. I remember Zip there in Upper Hutt as well. Tate Electronics. I mean, Tate in Christchurch used to build big stuff. We've just got this mindset now that, well, is it acceptable that we just go off the back of the Kāinga Ora? Well, I don't think you can get on the back of the Kāinga Ora. But even Fonterra today is saying, well, you know, we're going to sell up all these other businesses. It's kind of like, when are we going to hit the truth? And the reality here is, in order to do what we need to do, we've got to think creatively. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about what we used to do and is it possible to do it again? Because, you know, the consideration is we are a relatively small country, both by geography and land mass and population. We're not that big. And for Luxon to say, oh, you know, oh, we're the best little country or nothing, whatever the hell he said, you got to believe it. I actually don't think any of them believe it because they're always on the world stage. It's like sorry, I really am ranting tonight. It's like this plane business. You know what? An absolute embarrassment that we can't even fly our officials to key meetings around the Pacific for fear of the plane not working. And yet, we're the largest shareholder in New Zealand. Just borrow the plane. I don't care how you get there. Borrow the damn plane. Our defence forces, I mean, people say, oh, we shouldn't put any more money into defence. Okay, no, I get the argument. But really, we're a couple of fishing trawlers and a Cessna in. I'd hardly call it a defence force anymore. But within that defence force, we train them. They are trades, are plumbers and gas fitters and builders and all sorts of different things, psychologists. And those when they leave the army, traditionally they end up in the police and they become a supply channel of skills, but not anymore. They're all heading off to Australia. We're losing talent hand over fist. 3 points. Number one, we need to build more shit. Number two, we've got to value human labor and not just see them as human labor. And number three, we shouldn't be afraid of the fact that, you know, sound bites I get, but we shouldn't be afraid of having an honest conversation about the right way of doing shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That brings us back to housing, though. We have so much capital tied up in housing, unproductive housing, but the number goes up and that keeps people happy. So why would you take a higher risk and put your investment money into a business that's starting up a manufacturing plant or something like that.
And especially now,
that's a mugs game.
Yeah,
why
especially now when you're going to get a whole bunch of money back from the government. Hey Matthew, it's been fantastic having you on to. No, sorry. Lots of people in the chat are all saying yay. Cooking it there, a great chat, Matthew. Thank you for the super chat. Emma C-Dub. Kainga Ora have been busy doing groundbreaking research into low carbon housing, prefabrication and standardization to improve delivery. Because IKEA says a typical response from National and Labor did it so bad. Junk Greg Sailor, thank you for the super chat. As taxpayers, our taxes go to fund various government services. Those services are not private businesses. They are owned by us, taxpayers. They are there to serve us and not earn profits. Now, again, that doesn't mean that we take the money we don't take the money for granted. And we're not saying that. But also, we don't have to address it like it needs to return a financial dividend at the end of the business year. We don't look at it like that.
This statement is so good. I'm going to start fundraising from this point on to get a brand and be branding it on the forearm of every MP, like your brand cattle. That's something that needs to be burned into their memory. That is what they are there to do. That is what government departments are here to do.
See, if QR codes hadn't gone out of fashion, I'd probably have one on my arm right now. Or what do they do in some of these outfits in church? Instead of putting the tray around, I'm a good Catholic boy. Instead of putting the tray around and slipping your coin in the old koha envelope, now they're handing out EFTPOS machines. Just tap your card.
Right.
Tap your card.
Yeah, interesting. But look, the most important question for the night before we leave you is I'm here for Matthew's dog and Pat's dog and Chewy's dog, hoping. So my Nala had an appearance. Chewy, anyone else going to throw their dog up to make
my dog is currently shouting at my wife in the other room. So
okay.
Hey, my dog is currently programming a new code to take advantage of AI.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Matthew. It's been really good. I hope we can get you back often because it's been a great chat.
I love you guys. I'd love to come back.
Oh, thanks so much. We love you too. We love in an appropriately way. Not inappropriate love, appropriate sort of a way. Matthew, thanks for joining us, mate. It's been amazing. We appreciate your time.
Good night.
Cheers, mate. Have a good one.
A couple of other chats that have gone in there. Peter just wants to reiterate this government is just the worst people. And Nate wants to say, has anyone else noticed that Luxon's like the poor man's version of a hype man when his ministers speak, repeating words they say to add impact? Yes, I have noticed that as well. I do also think there was a chat in there which I've now lost, which was to specifically ask Matthew about, and Matthew's gone, so we're not going to do that. But just, I can't even get it to go up. Well, Mr. Alex has said about
about the Atlas thing.
The Cross Valley link. I'm sorry. I appreciate. I don't know why it won't load up for me there, Matthew. I appreciate the super chat and we acknowledge it. But Matthew's gone. Is it Matthew or Matthew? Sorry, that's Mr. Alex. Gave us a super chat. Matthew was already gone. So yes, but we do have to have our nightly update about that.
I saw a couple of comments about the recently published list of contributors or groups of people associated with the New Zealand Institute, which is an Atlas affiliated group. Some interesting names on there, major banks, but specifically in the comments, Naitahu were there. It is something that I am trying to talk to people about at the moment. It does seem to be interesting because we've talked about obviously Atlas here on the show before. Yeah,
we'll definitely have a look across that. Seeing we are according to Twitter the only investigative journalists in the country right now. Not sure how that works.
The other thing we touched on a little bit about the media here, and I think we feel in this a little bit as well. The media are used to the government doing things a lot slower. And if there's one thing that you say about this government is that they're going hell for leather, go fast, break stuff. Speed is very, very important. An unkind person, obviously not me, but an unkind person might be saying that they're moving fast because they might only have one term. But I don't think the media is ready for the speed that these guys are rolling out. Poor policy, vicious policy, unexpected things like taking away the first home grant and that sort of thing. Look, if they were taking away the first home grant because they had solved the housing crisis, we've built so many homes, we don't need to offer this anymore, you wouldn't hear peep out of me.
Yeah, but remember
that
first home grant is going to be taken away from people who are going to get $2 a week tax refund, Chewy. So it'll even itself out after about 2,500 weeks. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's absolute bullshit. And it's just like, these are things that would ordinarily be announced and the media would have a good week and a half to really rake people over the coals.
Yeah,
but fair. It is just like every day, every second day, there is something that would have ordinarily justified a raking over the coals.
Yeah.
I mean, this week alone, it's Tuesday, my dude. It is fucking Tuesday. And we've got a government minister that went, oops, I forgot about that $178,000 worth of donations that fell down the back of my couch. Oopsie doodle, very relatable. We've got John Key being sued for insider trading. We have the Head Start grant disappearing. We have warming everybody up to the idea of it's social housing, not state housing. We're warming up to the budget, which we know is going to be a fucking bloodbath. It never stops. And to the media, to respect to the media, how the fuck are they keeping up when half of them are out of a job in a couple of weeks?
Look, that's pretty fair. Look, what you're saying is pretty fair. I should take it a little step back. And to be honest with you, when we think of all these angles and stuff, it's after we've seen the story and spent some time thinking about the story and then reading a different article and connecting the dots. And in the moment in the thing, it's fair. I mean, if it's a Jack Tame, not so fair because he only does one show a week and he's got time to get ready for it. But yeah, in the roundup, that's fair. Fine, I'll be gentler on the poor media. But yeah, you're right. But we could continue this talk about media and investigative journalists if you want. And one that used to be one and has been in court today, actually. Should we ever talk about I was going to say, what's Liz short for? Elizabeth, probably, isn't it? Elizabeth Gunn.
The only good thing that Liz Gunn ever did, and I'm actually now thinking about it, not even sure that it was her, but do you remember Rastus the cat?
It does ring a bell, but not really.
This cat that used to ride around on the front of some dude's motorcycle, had a little motorcycle helmet and goggles.
And had little glasses. Yeah, yep, I'm with you.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Liz interviewed Rastus and the owner.
Right.
That's I assume, the last good thing that she did.
So that's peak journalism for Liz Gunn. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, let's have a look. Liz Gunn, assault trial judge finds anti-vaxxation. It's an interesting way of putting it, vaccination, rather than just anti-vaxxer, using the full term there. Anti-vaccination campaigner guilty of assault releases damning judgment. A judge has found Liz Gunn guilty of assault following an eventful trial of the former TVNZ host and anti-vaccination campaigner. But Judge Janie Forrest found Gunn and her cameraman, Jonathan Clark, not guilty of resisting police. A packed public gallery of supporters at the Monaco District Court applauded when the not guilty verdicts were read, but expressed dismay when the guilty verdict was returned, yelling shame and disgusting as the judge retired, because that's typically what that means, is you don't agree with me. So I'm going to say those sorts of things. Gunn and her lawyer, Matthew Haig, had claimed that she had merely touched the arm of the security worker to gain her attention, a defense rejected by Judge Forrest. In a written judgment released after the hearing, Judge Forrest described it as an hostile act. In summary, Ms. Gunn was arrogant, rude, overbearing and offensive in her manner in dealing with the complainant. Now, not to start to pick apart the things, none of those things warrant any kind of conviction, though. You're allowed to be rude, overbearing, offensive, and and that you can be racist. It's not against the law.
When I come to power,
yeah, okay, fair enough. Judge Forrest rejected Haig's defense that Gunn had implied consent to touch Auckland Airport security worker Anna, I'm not going to try that name, on the arm. To the contrary, she acted with complete and total disregard for social norms and for the person in question, the complainant. I have a couple of videos. The first video is actually I was going to say the alleged assault, but she's been found guilty. And this is one of these times where I'm going to go, there's a technicality here which she's guilty of. But we were talking last night about levels of crimes. When it comes to an assault, it's pretty minor. I'm just being straight with you.
Get the popcorn, people.
It's pretty minor.
This is amazing.
Here we go. What I actually find than the whatever it's called, than the touch, is the language. What country were you originated from? That's what I find is actually more revolting. But
it's racist. She's being
let's have a look.
Let's have a look. Drama queen.
And you can decide for yourself. Now it's up here in the corner. It's all blurred out. It does zoom in and get a little bit better, but the footage is average in quality.
Hello.
Hi.
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 Do you have a permission?
Well, I'm like the woman over there filming when her friends come up.
No, this is the interview in professional camera. So are you doing for the business purpose?
No, we're filming people that we've helped get off an island, and we're just going to get it in good quality, high resolution stuff. But it's not a business. There's no money being made. We are literally volunteers who make no money, and we volunteer to help each other, and we love each other, and we do it from love. We do it from service for a free New Zealand. And the thing is that if we have this kind of New Zealand where we don't have freedoms, because where are you from originally?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, well, it matters to me because no, I'll just tell you, because the way it started in Germany was with little freedoms being taken.
Could you please switch on
Sorry.
the camera?
Sorry,
Could you
excuse me.
Could you please?
Excuse me. What is
That's
the
it
law?
there.
What is the law?
That was it. Now I mean, like, guilty, not guilty, technically or not. It's pretty minor. Either way, watch it again.
Sorry.
Watch the hand in the center.
Sorry, excuse me.
And
Excuse me.
she
What
touches
is
there.
what is the law? What is the law?
Could you please?
No. What is the law that you're doing this under? You just have to.
You in the private area.
Parley. Are you French or are you?
Excuse
me.
What
I'll
the
be following
fuck?
this up with the head of the airport, and I'm going to be standing for politics. So I'm going to take this political.
I'm going to be standing for politics is not particularly the smartest line to use when you're trying to shall I say intimidate? Is that the right word? Someone when you're trying to basically say you need, I'm important. I'm going to politics.
And flash forward, that run at politics went very well.
Swimmingly.
Politically as well. This is a very big issue of abuse of power. This woman is being very rude. She wouldn't give her name, and there's no reason for her to do this. You may be able to explain to her, we are not doing this as a venture where we make money. This is friends filming on high resolution gear, filming other friends. So there's no reason. This is ego. This is abuse of power. And I'm going to take this large because I will not.
And that's why she's talking into a microphone, saying it's no different from, filming your family. So, I mean, it would be really interesting when the question is just because they've got a better camera, can they call it? But you have to remember, also a microphone in her hand. You can see it's holding. It's I've got them upstairs, the little DJI microphones. You see them on podcasts, you have them on their lapels all the time. And now making not threats like physical threats, but basically threats towards people's professionalism. And it's basically Karen to the max. Let me speak to your manager. That's basically what she's doing here. We'll get to the end of this. Only 30 seconds.
Be in a New Zealand where this sort of abuse happens. I don't know where she's come from, but she's clearly come from a country that is not ours, and it is abusive to treat us like
racist.
Explain.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to do this. This absolute overreach. It's bullying. She wouldn't talk to me. He said, "Go and talk to her." I said, "She won't talk."
Jesus, can you imagine being
And I
on the
said,
receiving
we're
end
not
of this?
making money from
Yeah.
this. We're just filming friends on a high resolution camera who are coming in.
No.
He
And with a
listened.
microphone.
He was nice. He was a Kiwi.
Okay. Oh, he was a
Oof.
Kiwi.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was frightening.
Yeah.
He was nice. He was a
Frightening.
Kiwi. He was
Frightening.
nice. He was a Kiwi. Now, I've actually got the footage of her coming out of Thing today, thanks to intrepid journalist John Ansell. But yeah, it's not exactly hidden, the racial undertones of the language. He was nice. He was Kiwi. Where are you from? Not a country like New Zealand. It's pretty revolting. All of those words, though, aren't criminal. The touch, pretty minor. Maybe what a judge does, it looks at the full picture and say, if you incorporate all those words as well, that added to it or something. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Look, when I first watched this, and I watched this about a week ago, it's one of those things. That touch of the shoulder, it's someone that works in retail with people face to face and that sort of thing. if someone reached over and touched me,
Yeah, okay.
in that way, it would provoke a similar reaction. A very
what the
sharp,
fuck?
you don't touch me.
Yeah.
There's absolutely
I also agree that it's an assault because unwanted touch, full stop, is an assault. So there's no question. It's just all I'm saying is on the scale of assaults, it's a more minor one. But Navigator here, just to, I'm not saying that that's the correct answer. It's just my thoughts. Says that is incredibly intimidating. How dare she touch that worker? Fair enough. I'm happy to back down and withdraw. But that was just my original thoughts.
And I mean, you just see the way that Liz talks. It's like she gets on a tear, and as a ranter, I recognize a rant.
Game recognizing game, is it?
Game recognizes game. But yeah, like it's came over. Excuse me, do you have permission to film there? Because you obviously have a shoulder-mounted fucking camera. And she's like, oh no, it's like people with their iPhones filming their relatives coming in. Liz has worked in the media and probably knows very well that you need permission to film by law in an airport.
I don't know. Do you know that to be true? I don't know if that's true because it is required,
but it's private.
So what happens if these come out and you're filming your family coming through? That's my question. Let's not defend you, but I'd like to know the legalities.
No, in a professional capacity, you need to apply to the airport for permission.
But I guess that's her argument. Her argument, it wasn't professional, which is bullshit because it's obviously they've got microphones and it's going to go on YouTube.
She has a fucking cameraman.
Yeah.
With not an iPhone. If she wanted to film on an iPhone, she could film on a fucking iPhone. No one would have ever approached her.
Yeah.
But she's there mic'd up with a dude with a shoulder-mounted digital camera.
Yeah.
Your average punter isn't going to go out and buy that. It's like a $3,000 or $4,000 piece of kit. So of course,
agreed.
Someone from the airport is going to come up and ask the question, excuse me, do you have permission? And that's what set it off. This huge, big fucking rant.
The entitlement.
Where she doesn't answer the question. It's entitled. It's also a load of bullshit.
Yeah.
And then everything else comes out. Like she goes to talk to the cameraman because he's the one with the camera. And then she's suddenly in her face and touching her.
Yeah. And look, a comment in the chat, Paul, the other one, g'day Paul, says it could be that also the judge wanted to make an example of her. The assault was definitely not the most extreme, but it's a great opportunity to hold her to account in some way. Yeah, look, and look, the point being, she said it wasn't professional. She's got a YouTube channel. She's got a presence in the media. She had a microphone and a broadcast quality. I mean, to be honest, these are 4K. These are basically broadcast quality. But but what you're saying,
if she wanted to film on an iPhone, she fucking could. But the grifting money's got to be spent somehow. So.
Well, I actually think what's more telling is the microphone. That's the more telling bit. People who are just doing it, for their family don't carry a microphone with them. She had a microphone, DJI mic. So let's have a look at her coming out of the court today after being found guilty. Obviously, she got to go home and stuff, which is all well and good. This has been sent to me, this link. I got told it's about 3:40. You can see in the background there is Liz coming out. So we'll join his conversation midstream and see what she had to say.
It's possible this bad news, although it might turn out to be good news because it should rouse the passionless people. Hello, here we are.
Who's this
I'm not going to say anything other than this.
Anything. Yep.
The people of New Zealand need.
I'm not going to say anything. Here's my speech.
Yep. This is beyond corrupt. And when I was standing there and I felt the presence of the person I felt at the airport when I was being bashed up, I felt my father. And
I was being bashed up? Was that the issue? Was semi-resisting police but not found guilty of?
This is her whole thing. Since this has happened, she has been sporadically wearing either what do they call it, like a wrist brace, or she's been holding. Like her argument is, when she was arrested, the police used excess force.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a criticism that the judge has made of the police, that they didn't give her enough time to realize that she was being trespassed and asked to leave the airport. There was 18 seconds before that they were arrested. And I'm with the judge on this point. The cops came in and just pretty much instantly took her down. But the fact that she's gone, this police officer has 3 times the strength of me. He's twice my size. He used excess force. And the cops come along and said, no. Like, I grabbed her arm and went to move her out of the property. And she said he's basically destroyed her wrist. But sporadically, she has had her whole arm in a sling or her arm braced.
Do you know what's unfortunate? What's unfortunate is if she believed in the medical system, she could have gone and got scans on that wrist and had evidence. But seeing she thinks that the medical system is corrupt, then obviously she wouldn't trust them. They probably would plant someone else's X-ray to then not fulfill her narrative. We'll just get to the end of this, and let's just listen to the last 60 seconds or so of Liz Gunn not making a statement.
I raised him in that first message to all New Zealanders. I said, I'm doing this because my father went to war for a free New Zealand, and one where we can communicate, and we must honour what those soldiers did. And I could feel him in the court today, and what I felt was pure horror, that he, or his soul or his essence, was saying, this cannot be the country I went to war for. This cannot be what our generation sacrificed so much for my daughter to be
held accountable for her actions,
abused by the court system. And that's all I want to say, New Zealanders. You must stand up now.
I can't
because
say anything,
I'm the first, but you'll be next if you don't.
There you go. And there's a Trumpian line at the end. I'm the first and you'll be the next. In other words, if they can do it to me, they'll do it to you. So just so you know, New Zealand, if you go into a private place with professional recording equipment and refuse to leave, yeah, they can do it to you too, because they did it to Liz. Because that's what it's about.
I'll point out the gentleman that she's talking to as well. That's Colin Ansell.
Yep.
If you're not familiar with that man's name, he is responsible for a couple of things that you might be familiar with. Do we remember Iwi versus Kiwi?
Yep.
He was Don Brash's advisor.
Right.
And he was Axe advisor. And if you really want to just feel the desire to pour bleach in your eyeballs, try and track down his social media these days. Incredibly racist.
Colin or John? Because the Facebook page is John Ansell.
I thought it was Colin, but yeah, no, you might be right. It's definitely Ansell, but yeah.
Is that it there? John Ansell.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, John Ansell. Sorry.
Okay. That's right. Just checking. I don't know.
Yeah. He's fully at that. Like, police have gone to his house before because of the comments that he's made online threatening Jacinda Ardern. He's live streamed those events as if it's Ruby Ridge ×2. And it's just literally 2 cops going, you can't say these things online, man. So these guys blow everything out of proportion. And they all talk like this. It's all this feedback loop because they're only talking to themselves. We talk about being aware of your echo chamber. These guys are stuck in the most delusional echo chamber I have ever seen. I don't know if it's mental illness. I don't know if it's grift. I don't know if it's a combination of it. It's just crazy. The way that she talks, the intensity that she brings to it, the theatricalness, the hyperbole is just, she always makes it sound like, they're in the midst of the Nazi Empire and the only people that can see the way through, honorable freedom fighters. And they're just, just the worst people. They were there to film people that had refused
anti-vaxxers,
cooperate with was it Tokelau's lockdown and outbreak.
Right. Yeah.
Liz was behind what we were talking about with that little kid who needed the open heart surgery.
Yeah, the blood, not getting vaccinated blood.
Yeah. She was 100% behind that. She does an enormous amount of harm.
I'm just flicking through his social medias. I don't really know anything about him, to be honest, but I noticed something when certain people are talking about New Zealand and standing up for New Zealand and doing New Zealand, the group that seems to be around them don't seem to be very representative of New Zealand. I mean, if you just, I don't want to play anymore particularly, but if you just have a look at like the group of people that are there, I think I would say white and middle class to boomer is actually, look, there you go, there's a better photo there, is everyone, just the people that are there. So you're talking about New Zealand, the country you live in and all that kind of stuff. There you go. It's not particularly representative of the New Zealand we all live in. So maybe what she's saying is fair if she's talking to that New Zealand, a particular slice of middle-aged to boomer white New Zealanders who think they have a supreme look over the world. Just
that woman there that's filming, I assume she's live streaming to everybody else that's also in that circle. That's the echo chamber. Like
that's a bit like us.
Like there was a shop here in Dunedin that was covered in NZ loyal stuff pre-election.
Yeah,
and it was nominally a gold exchange or a jewelers and something. It was in the worst part of town. And his whole front of his shop, apart from the name of the shop, was NZ loyal stuff, conspiracy stuff about only using cash and how the UN was coming to get us all. And it was just, you know, that you see those crazy people with bumper stickers all over their car. The guy had done that to his shop. Like everybody that I've seen that loves Liz Gunn and loves New Zealand loyal has boiled their brain.
You said everyone, don't you mean both people? I think you used them.
Look, there's at least 20.
Okay, sure. Thank you for the super chat, Peter. Sea lioning, a type of trolling or harassment that consists of pursuing people with relentless requests for evidence, often tangential, while maintaining a pretense of civility and sincerity. I talked to that's right. Evidence, I was feeling the other. Hey, I think this is probably the third time we've ever talked about Liz Gunn, and I feel like she's had enough of our attention now, to be honest.
I would agree. Like, there's a couple of good YouTube, not YouTube, Facebook pages debunking conspiracies. Aotearoa, I think, often just keeps tabs on her, and that's enough for me. I just can't handle it. It's that combination of just horrible causes and the fact that she is just a retail Karen turned up to 11 just gives me PTSD.
Yeah, no, and I think that whole thing that you think about, I mean, okay, let's move past the Gunmeister, but the racist Karen, the looking down your nose. Oh, and like my grandmother, like she's been gone for 20 years, but they were kind of stuck up snobs, sort of middle class, but thought they were upper class. And one of the questions you'd always ask is, oh, and what does your father do? Is anyone in your family a known name? Like, are they a known person?
And that's the kind of isn't it?
Yeah, that's the kind of vibe from that. 40 years later, with someone 30 years younger. Oh, and is your known name? No? What does your father do? That kind of vibe. It's just revolting. It's being stuck up in the 1950s, you know, like stuck up and looking down your nose at someone from the 1950s. That's what it is. All right. Hey,
we were talking about her name earlier as well. Yes, it's not her real name. It's Elizabeth Jane Cooney.
Oh, I wonder where she goes. But don't tell Karen Plunkett your name. It's not your real name.
Oh, we Ollie.
Well, have a crack. I'm going to show you something now that I haven't advertised at all. So this is our 629 people echo chamber right now, because most of them are in the lounge. Have you got some of them in your front lounge as well?
You guys are the best echo chamber, though. Just the best.
Do you ever watch that Good Mythical Morning YouTube?
No, I can't say I've come across that.
Good Mythical Morning's pretty cool. It's become, you know, when YouTubers get to a certain size, they become kind of more professional. It loses a bit of that kind of what you liked about it. That's sort of what they've got. But there's a guy called Matt Lieb, I think his surname is, from Good Mythical Morning. He's got a Twitter feed, and he's been doing something really interesting in the last wee while to do with Israel and Gaza. He's been showing video on his Twitter feed of what Israel is saying about Hamas, and then showing video of what Israel's actually doing. So these are and I will make the image full size in a second. These are aid trucks going through Gaza. And the Israeli narrative to it is Israel lets aid into Gaza because they're not committing a genocide. Hamas gunmen steals the aid from Palestinians. There are gunmen on the top of the aid. There is no evidence that there's any theft going on as opposed to protecting it through the streets. Now, you might look at this and go, Pat, you're being a bit naive to all of that. And that might be the case if there weren't also dozens of videos of what Israelis are doing to aid at the border. So this is at the border. This is aid destined for Gaza. And look, I can show you 10 of these videos. I'm not cherry picking either one of them. So Israel is saying, look, we let all that aid go through and look what Hamas does, right? Hamas, terrorist organization, committed war crimes in October, all of that. But you still can tell the truth as well, Israel. And then this is what Israel is actually, I might have two videos on, there's noise. Oh, yeah, there's that one there. This is actually what Israel is doing at checkpoints with aid that's supposed to be going through to Gaza. And I'll read some of this out for our audio podcast. We're seeing aid being broken. We came here to block trucks. Unfortunately, the trucks passed us. We couldn't stop them. But everyone who came here is a hero, and together we defeat the enemy. And tomorrow we will be back with more roadblocks. And we're seeing pictures of them destroying the aid.
Absolute nuts.
And there you go. What you're hearing, audio podcast, is bags of rice being slit open and tipped out onto the road before they go through to Gaza.
There's uniformed Israeli IDF staff there.
Now it's got, that's got 14th of May 2023. I think the date's wrong on it, but there are other ones as well. There are so many of them of what's going on. Like they'll show the Hamas gunmen going through, and then they'll show this one. Same thing again. Rice being thrown off the back of the truck rather than going through to Gaza, and it's everywhere. Look, another one of gunmen on the ship on the thing, and then Israeli supporters are blocking aid going through. Goes on and on and on. Israeli supporters blocking aid, throwing rice off trucks as well, singing and dancing about it.
Having a little dance while children starve to death in tents. Fantastic.
And look, let's be honest here. Not necessarily believing either narrative. I think Hamas are perfectly good at propaganda along the way as well. I guess what I'd like to say is Israel can't hide behind, look how terrible Hamas are and what they're doing with aid when that's what they're doing with aid. Again, there may be no winners here. Although I will say again, there seems to be no evidence of those gunmen sitting on top of the aid, then taking the aid. There is footage of them going through the streets. There's no footage of what happens at the end of that journey. Whether it's them protecting it from Israelis or not, I don't know. Not going to say, but there's no video footage anywhere that I've seen of Hamas destroying the aid and taking it themselves. There is lots of evidence of Israelis destroying aid that's supposed to be going through. They're the observations.
I remember months ago now when they were talking about how many truckloads of supplies would be needed to supply Gaza, and they were talking about hundreds and hundreds of trucks per day.
Yeah, and
we saw in footage there two traveling in a loose convoy.
Yeah. And let me just say as well, because audio podcast, Guru says that the guys on top of the trucks were security. Probably. I'm not actually challenging whether they're good or bad. All I'm doing is being honest and saying what I've seen is gunmen on top of trucks. I've seen nothing that they've taken it from civilians, but I have seen Israelis destroying aid. So that's what I've seen. And yet, Guru, I fully accept that well could be the answer. They well could be security, keeping it safe. I mean, maybe from Israelis attacking and destroying the aid. I don't know.
Yeah. And again, just to highlight what we saw in one of those videos is, yes, it was civilians doing the damage, but there were uniformed Israeli staff in the shot. They were there. So if they want to say, look at us making sure aid gets through, what the fuck were they doing then?
Yeah.
It's a fig leaf.
Any other text that you want to get to before we move on? We'll do one more topic. We've got time. Because IKEA, I think, is referencing the suing for insider trading. John Key, if there's smoke, someone farted. I guess so. There's also lots of people talking about the video I just showed you. I know it was sort of a out of the blue.
I mean, tangentially, and I don't have it to hand or anything like that, but I saw in RNZ's Instagram feed what we were talking about last night came up, and Luxon was asked about that fellow doing the hunger strike.
Yeah.
And Luxon did a big old Luxon and threw his corporate Scrabble bag into the ceiling fan again. And of course, he's incredibly proud of our actions around what's happening in Gaza and that sort of thing. And actually, we've been really strong and we've been really clear about what our position is and all of this sort of stuff. And I just screamed into a pillow because we're doing next to nothing. You know, he pointed out that we're donated to aid organizations and that sort of thing. And it's not enough. And that's what he's not recognizing. He can't be proud of it. We are doing the bare minimum. Our government took months and months and months to sort of go, hey, Israel, maybe stop being so murderous.
Stop being dicks, bro.
Yeah. You're being a real egg. Oh, what's that? You don't give a fuck what we think? Oh, okay. Carry on, I guess. We haven't followed that up with anything.
Yeah.
Nobody has.
Yeah.
We're not expelling their ambassador. We're not closing their embassy. We're not sanctioning them. We're not pulling our troops back from what they're doing in the Red Sea or anything like that. They've given us every opportunity to. They've done everything up to just calling us out and saying the All Blacks are shit. Is that what it would take? Netanyahu getting on the news and going, hey, New Zealand, crowded house is Australian and the All Blacks are shit and Luxon, suck my balls. And then maybe we'll do something. Like, where is the moral backbone that Luxon would love to trot out as long as it is historically distanced enough from any actual moral position today?
Excuse me, sir. I don't think we're going to get to anything else because you've just sent me on a tangent. Because I tweeted this out at about 1 a.m. 1 a.m. this morning. Have you? I'm surprised this hasn't made more news at the moment. ICC, International Criminal Court prosecutor, seeks arrest warrants against Sinwar and Netanyahu for war crimes over October 7 and Gaza. The International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for Hamas leader in Gaza and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity over the October 7 attacks on Israel and the subsequent war in Gaza. The court's prosecutor, Karim Khan, told CNN's Christian Amanpour in an exclusive interview on Monday. The International Criminal Court is wanting to have an arrest warrant, is seeking an arrest warrant. I mean, no one's really going to question the leader of Hamas, sure, but Benjamin Netanyahu, that's bigger news than I think the media has given it in the last 22 hours.
Here's my big call. This is the first thing that I thought of when I saw this. I'm the leader of Hamas. I immediately hand myself in. I present myself for that warrant. Like, then the ball's in Netanyahu's court.
Yep.
At that point, you're presenting yourself for, like, literally a legal charge. You are more or less protected. And yes, you're probably going to face some consequences, but you are being the bigger man at that point. You then have a platform on the world stage
Yeah.
In a court to say what you want, and you know Netanyahu's not going to do it.
Mm.
Like, just, it'll never happen. It'll never fucking happen. But the first thing that I thought of, I was like, what if? I don't see how Hamas has anything really to lose here. Their backs are up against the wall.
Yep.
The leader of Hamas has to know that there's a Mossad hit squad, homing in on him. He's going to get a drone through his bedroom window or something. Like, just get out, hand yourself in, take the hit.
Yeah, I just saw come through the chat then as we were speaking, as you were speaking, a couple of people saying, yeah, but America will block it. I don't know if you can. I mean, unless they can influence the International Criminal Court, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens from here. Look, even if it goes nowhere, that as a headline, crimes against humanity, we want to try Netanyahu for crimes against humanity, is huge. That's
and when they go into why it's crimes against humanity, it's really clear. It's using starvation as a weapon of war. It's deliberately targeting civilians. It's stuff that they 100% are guilty of.
Yep.
I haven't seen the direct charges against Hamas. It's almost like they don't need to mention them. But yeah, it's like the US does not have a good history with the International Criminal Court either. I seem to remember during Afghanistan, or maybe it was Iraq, when there were talks of war crimes charges being leveled against individual US military leaders for actions that happened. The statement was made that if anybody gets arrested and goes to The Hague, then the army will come and get them out of The Hague under arms. So, yeah, it's not the UN.
Yeah. So watch this space. And I also see people saying that it should have been the biggest headline around the world for the last 24 hours. I sort of agree, because even if it doesn't lead to anything, just a criminal court, international criminal court saying to Netanyahu, if we could, we would, is a pretty big diversion, pretty big movement from a lot of the international world saying, well, Israel, they can kind of do what they want, with their history. We give them a pretty long amount of lead before we pull them in. It looks like the lead's finally come to its end, which it should have done yonks ago, but it's finally come to its end and they're trying to pull them in. So it's going to be fascinating.
Freestyle's just pointed out that the US isn't a signatory to the International Criminal Court.
Yeah, but they may be able. That's why I said they might be able to exert pressure in other ways. I don't know. If Biden, visited the prosecutors and wanted to, put his oar in, I'm sure that would carry some weight, whether it's official or not. And I'm not suggesting it do that, but
Oh, there you go. The US, Russia, and Israel are not signed up to the ICC. So every time these guys talk about the rules-based order, tell them to smoke it. What the hell?
And also, even if they can't physically call him with charges, having that out there is wanted for crimes against humanity. Just that. That is an addendum on his Wikipedia page would be a very interesting thing, Chewy. All right. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. Now, we didn't get to Waitangi Tribunal meddling. Seymour accusing Waitangi Tribunal of meddling. That was an exclusive on News Hub tonight, which means it'll be across all the other news sources tomorrow. So we'll cover that off tomorrow night. And I think we're done for the night. I've worked on the credits. If you would like to support what we do, if you've enjoyed the conversations tonight, if you like what you hear and see, if you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. It definitely helps us in every way, shape, and form. And if you do become a patron, you get to be in our credits, which I think I've fixed, and I think are going to work tonight, Chewy. Is there anything else you want to say, sir, before we head off for the night?
No. Thanks, chat. This has been a great show. I think we found the third host.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. He was ready to keep going, wasn't he? Great. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, team. Love you to bits. We will catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News.
Pick up the news. Big hairy style, keeping it loose. New Zealand, where the politics play, they bring the truth every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand. No time for cheese, just facts straight up. Plan and chewing, never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar. Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and chew, they'll make the right choice.
It does give a robot.
Thanks, team. I guess we'll catch you tomorrow.
Cheers,
Been
man.
lovely to be with you again tonight. Have a good one. Be safe. See you tomorrow night. Come on back. Bring a friend. Hooroo.